Silverbullet. We are a customer experience agency and a treasure data professional services partner. My name is Andrea Ghibaudi. I'm the managing director for the Americas region at Silverbullet, and have with me my colleague Jacobson, managing director of our European region.
Hey guys.
And today we're here to share with you 4 tips to drive success from your CDP program. We have more than 4 tips, but in the interest of time, we selected the ones that we think are the most important for you to share with you. So those 4 tips are, in our opinion, the most important one. First of all, developing a strategic CDP roadmap to drive success post-implementation. Establishing a strong governance framework, I think it's very important both from a business and technical perspective. Tracking your results with a robust measurement framework. And finally, making sure that you have the right team, talent, or resources in place. So we'll start from the first tip, developing a strategic CDP roadmap. In our opinion, there are 3 key phases to developing a strategic CDP roadmap, starting from the implementation all the way to acceleration. So the first stage really is the foundation. So making sure that we are designing and building first of all, a centralized customer view, bringing all your data sources together in an harmonized way to build a holistic, unified communication strategy. So cross-channel orchestration and data-driven personalization at scale is only really possible when all the data sources have been harmonized. The second phase is to grow with the program. So whilst the first phase is really about building the foundation and starting with some basic use cases, the second phase of the roadmap is really about evolving and testing slightly more advanced use cases, as we will see in a second. And the third phase really is acceleration and starting with experimentation, thinking about slightly more advanced use cases such as custom model and really leveraging all the machine learning and AI tools available. So if we go into a little bit more detail into each of those 3 phases of the roadmap, starting from the foundation, we already talked about the importance of building a full customer view. What's also very important is to make sure that we're not only growing the database with new profiles, but we're also adding depth to the customer profiles in the CDP. So initiatives like progressive profiling, continuous building of profiles so that we can add more attribute and more variables for more personalization at scale is incredibly important. And value exchange, having a strong value exchange plays a pivotal role in that area. In the foundational phase, you will also want to test simple, straightforward use cases, usually single channel use cases, just to get familiar with the platform and the segmentation and test different hypotheses, and work together with the CDP MarTech features as well as the features within your activation platforms, which generally in the first phase will be media and direct channels and direct CRM channels to leverage the personalization features that are out of the box. If we go into the growth phase, then it really, from a business perspective, it really becomes about starting to build what is an end-to-end customer experience cycle. Taking the learnings and the data from the initial activations and initial engagements and pilot use cases, and take that data to inform the next chapter of use cases and the next chapter and the next chapter. And also from an activation perspective, in the growth phase, we're working with our clients to look at experimentation with cross-channel use cases. So once you have identified and tested different single channels and understanding what works well for you and which KPIs do you want to leverage across each channel, then you will be more likely ready to start experimenting, combining, for example, CRM channels with paid media channels, using tools like customer journey orchestration within treasure data. But you can also then expand into customer care and service and sales if you are ready to take that step. And also you will start at that point in the growth phase, you're able to start with experimentation with slightly more custom integrations. So whilst in the foundation phase, you will use out-of-the-box integrations with your activation channels and out-of-the-box features, in the growth stage, you can start modifying and customizing those integrations so that you can push more data, you can do more personalization, and you can be more creative in what we're trying to achieve. And also, that's the right time to start playing with with all the AI features available in your CDP and your wider MarTech stack, whether it's machine learning, or Gen AI features, which we heard a lot about in the last couple of days. And finally, the acceleration phase. So this is the most advanced phase of your CDP roadmap, this CDP strategic roadmap. And this is really when you should be ready to design what we call an experimentation framework, really starting to leverage data science to calculate, to generate new insights and to calculate, to create new data points from all the activity from your CDP. Again, accelerating all the work that you're doing around machine learning and Gen AI features, accelerating on custom models, depending on your business requirements. And also, it's going to be the right time in the acceleration stage, you will want to shift from reactive consumer engagement to proactive consumer engagement. And that really means starting to get familiar and scale your predictive modeling capabilities within your CDP. So building predictive attributes based on historical data, based on your own customer model, and also leveraging predictive features within your customer journey orchestration tool. We're not going to go through the detail here, but this is an example of what a typical, very high-level strategic CDP roadmap could look like. We have our 3 phases that we've mentioned: foundation, growth, and acceleration. And horizontally, you can see some swim lanes. Now, every CDP roadmap will be slightly different for different type of organization and different type of industries. These are just some examples of initiatives that are part of a CDP roadmap that we usually see across most of our clients. For example, profile and segmentation. You can see a number of different initiatives around building profiles and advanced segmentation strategy that will become more sophisticated over time. We have consent management, which is increasingly important everywhere in the world. Data privacy, adhering to data privacy rules in the countries where you're operating to. Personalization and optimization based on the engagement data that you generate. Value exchange, I've mentioned this, is extremely important, not to just acquire new customer data, but also to continue the conversation with your customers. You continuously need to provide incentives to give them a reason to give you more data. So to go beyond just the sort of transactional layer. And finally, orchestration and automation, thinking about how we evolve the journey orchestration map and roadmap with you. That said, I'll hand over to Alex to go through the next steps.
Cool. Thanks very much. So the next tip that we're going to go through is all about how to build a strong governance framework around your CDP, essentially to make sure that the trains arrive on time and that the data is healthy in your platform. So something that we often talk about at Silverbullet is setting up a center of excellence. A center of excellence is essentially a cross-functional or cross-departmental collection of people who are there to make sure that the quality is maintained in the data and in the platform, to be regular, doing an audit, and perhaps most importantly, is to share best practices, so to really champion the use of the platform. And I think what's an interesting trend that we're seeing in market is that we have product teams now who are often our lead engagement, and they're actually selling and advocating for the project itself. So the typical types of governance that we have, so technical governance, which I'll come to in a minute, which is all about making sure that the data is healthy, that the workflows are happening at the right time. People governance, which is about making sure that you've got the right roles and responsibilities set up. And then experience governance, which is all about making sure that the activation is done properly, which I'll come to. So firstly, I wanted to go through this. So if you've worked on any website project or any engineering, this will be super familiar. So you need a development environment, so it's like a playground for coders, a QA environment to do integration testing to make sure that it fits in with your whole ecosystem. And then, of course, production environment, once things are set up, to push it live. The reason I wanted to go through something so basic is actually data projects are super messy, okay? So stuff goes wrong all the time, and it's all about maximizing the safety net around your project and minimizing the risks. If you do this right, you should have an automated CI/CD pipeline to try and automate a lot of it, and also the testing frameworks that you have in place should learn as your whole project evolves. So every time that a mistake does happen, you write a test for it, you write a case for it, and so your whole safety net evolves with the project over time. So our most mature customers, it's not unusual to have 15 or so steps within the technical governance. So I'm not going to go through all of these, but this is something that you build up to over time commonly. And what's important is there's stuff that happens after that you've gone live as well, with different features. So keeping your documentation up to date, which I know sounds really straightforward, but trust me, most businesses really don't do this very well. Having retros when you bring different things out, and really important is having a rollback plan, so that when things do go wrong in a live environment, you're covered. So next up is around RACI, so the roles and responsibilities for your program. This is all about the rules of engagement. This is a sort of thing that evolves over time. We typically review these quarterly with our clients, but equally when a big milestone is coming up, so say for example, we're going to be implementing the app as part of the CDP, then there's going to be new people involved, new types of data, new processes, and so this is something that you constantly have to add towards. And so finally, in the governance framework is actually tracking your results. So the way that we look at measurement frameworks at Silverbullet, the key, most important thing is to make sure that what you're doing actually is in line with your business vision, right? So in 2024, probably the thing that's common across most of our clients is that they're all talking about loyalty. So for CPGs, that might just mean about engagement. We have a lot of hospitality clients, and that's all about becoming advocates for their brand. So what's important is that all of the different KPIs, which I'm sure most of you have heard about, they have to feed into how that's actually driving the vision forward. Once you have that in place, you can then start looking at all the different parts of the customer journey and making sure that the different stages, if you like, are all tying back to that. So that's once you've got those things in place, you can actually begin to look at particular use cases. So if it's paid media, doing simple things like lookalike and suppression, but that it all needs to feed back up into making sure that your building blocks are there in the first place and that that vision is being spoken to. Right, so all of this is something that, again, is a process. And with what Andrea went through originally, it's the same kind of thing. So it has to mature over time. To begin with, you might just be looking at simple metrics like the number of customers in your database and efficiency savings. But what you really want to be working to is actually having different hypotheses that you can test and use the data in your platform to try and understand what's really moving the dial. So understanding whether there are particular attributes that particular customers have and whether the different tactics you have in place are moving them towards that vision that you have, whether they're really going to become a loyal advocate for your brand. And then eventually, when you have matured enough and you understand what seems to be working, that's when you can do some pretty cool things around data science and modeling to really have a statistical understanding of your customer base and the measurement that's working. So I'm not going to go through all of Universal Control Cell or UCC now. You can come to our booth to talk about it more. Essentially, this is a data-driven approach which is able to give you an idea of what the incremental uplift is across all channels. It's a very data science-led approach, and it is probably the best way of articulating value. Cool.
Thank you, Alex. And then finally, for our last tip, we want to talk about people, and we want to talk about assembling the right team to drive success of your CDP program. I should preface this section by saying that actually success in a CDP program is driven by close collaboration between different teams and divisions within the organization and within the enterprise. So it's not just about one team and one core set of people driving autonomously. However, what we want to highlight now is a set of roles that are indispensable to drive CDP success and to drive and foster that collaboration between teams that we talked about. So let's start. First of all, you will need a program lead. In some cases, the program lead can be the CDP product owner. In some cases, these would be separate roles. But the main responsibilities of the CDP program lead are to effectively overseeing the whole program, the whole CDP program, goals and initiatives, managing the budget and resources internally to make sure that all the initiatives that are planned can happen, and also that can happen in a timely manner and according to the key milestones that the enterprise set for itself. The second very important role in any CDP success story is a data strategy lead. Sometimes the data strategy lead can also be the CX strategy lead. Sometimes these will be different teams. The key responsibilities of the data strategy lead will be to provide strategic guidance for CDP adoption and acceleration, developing the CDP audience strategy and the strategic roadmap that we mentioned earlier in the presentation,
identifying any possible opportunity for data-driven improvements, starting from marketing, but then expanding into customer care and service and all the other opportunities that exist within the organization, and finally defining and maintaining the measurement framework that Alex just talked about. So it's very important for this role, which again, depending on the maturity of your CDP program and the size of your organization, all of these roles could be teams or individual people, or actually some of these roles could be combined into a single person. It really depends on a case-by-case scenario. But data strategy lead, very important role that you need to identify at the beginning of your program. CDP architect, incredibly important person as well. So the responsibilities of the CDP technical architect will be effectively to design and own the CDP architecture and the underlying data model that powers your CDP, overseeing all the system integration and data flows, not just data sources into the CDP, but also all the outbound connections and the feedback loop from the outbound connection and all the different workflows that you will build in your treasure data CDP. And then finally, ensuring data quality and governance and producing technical designs for solution. Obviously, there is the initial implementation of a CDP, but as you work with your CDP and do more and more and more, you will have more data sources, more initiatives, more platforms that you would want to bring into your overarching architecture. So you need a very strong, competent technical architect that knows your platform inside out and is able to work with the different stakeholders across the organization to define the solutions before they start to be built. The technical architect will work very closely with the data engineer or data engineering team. So the data engineering team will be effectively the power, will be the hands-on keyboards powering the decision made by and with the technical architect. So the data engineers will be responsible for maintaining and building and maintaining data pipelines across your architecture, ensuring data quality and consistency, as well as continuously optimizing data processes to maximize performance. Especially as you become more and more sophisticated with your CDP program, you will have more and more data sources, more and more data points, more profiles. So you want to make sure to identify any possible opportunity to optimize and become more and more efficient. And finally, you will need an activation specialist. Again, in some cases, the data strategy lead and activation specialist might be the same person, maybe at the beginning of your program, and eventually they might expand into different roles and different teams. The main responsibilities of the activation specialists are really to, first of all, build and maintain the audience segmentation in the CDP. So it's the person or the team that is functionally operating the platform from a business perspective. So they will be building all the audiences, they will be building the journeys in customer journey orchestration. They will also be experts or they will have expertise on the key activation channels connected to your CDP. Again, at the beginning, those would be primarily marketing channels, paid media and direct marketing channels, but as you expand into other areas of the business, such as customer care and service, you might need to bring different expertise to that team as well. And also these activation specialists would be responsible to bridge the strategy, the CDP strategy with the available features within the downstream activation platforms that you decide to use. And finally, analyzing campaign performance and continuously optimize. There are scenarios where you might have a data analyst that work together with the activation specialist and the rest of the team, or you might have the activation specialist taking over specific data analyst set of responsibilities as well. And finally, we've heard a lot about Gen AI tools that are already available today within Treasure Data and other tools that will be available in the future. So we think that it's very important for all your roles that are the core CDP team to be trained and literate on the basics of prompt engineering. So we think this is very important because regardless of whether it's going to be a data engineer leveraging the AI framework within Treasure Data to optimize some data workflows or some unification workflows, or whether it's the activation specialist just using Marketing Copilot and trying to query the database with Gen AI prompts to understand which segments to build for which specific campaigns. It's going to be incredibly important for these people to know the basic tenets of prompt engineering so that they can maximize the output that these Gen AI tools can provide to the business. That said, these are our 4 tips to success. And just to conclude, to tell you a little bit more about us, we are as I was saying before, a customer experience agency. We are a professional services partner for Treasure Data. We work with Treasure Data customers across the full spectrum of customer experience. So we provide strategic consultancy. We are a system integrator and an implementation partner for Treasure Data globally. And we are also an agency, as I was saying. So we work with customers in the long term to help them make the most out of the platform and become more and more sophisticated over time. We are a global organization. We're independent, but we're global. We're 4 key hubs across the US, Europe, Latin America, and Australia. We work with a bunch of different clients across many verticals, whether it's consumer goods, media, hospitality, travel, and other areas. And we would love to have conversations with you if you want to learn more about the work that we do. And just come and say hi. Our kiosk is just there. We would love to share more about our case studies, more tips for success, and discuss your objectives for your CDP program, either current or future. That said, thank you very much for your time and attention.